Good evening. My name is Paul Williams, and I'm here today to talk to you about one of the local charitable organizations here in the town of Huntington in the county of Suffolk, New York. I'm here to talk about the Huntington Lighthouse Preservation Society. On August 7th, 1789, Congress passed the Lighthouse Act. This is important because the Lighthouse Act took the maintenance and construction of all lighthouses, federal buoys, and other navigational aids in the waterways to federal control. This is important also because this act was passed before Congress even decided on what their salaries would be. They were concerned with all of the maritime accidents and maritime safety, as the waterways were a significant means of travel back in those days. The Huntington Lighthouse Preservation Society was organized in 1985 by Mrs. Janice Harrington and her family. This family was sailing from Maine down to Huntington, and once they reached the Huntington Harbor, they were moved with compassion by the condition by which the Huntington Lighthouse had been left in. They noticed the lighthouse was not in a very good condition. There was significant weathering and other damage done to the lighthouse. And where they sailed from in Maine, all the lighthouses were already cared for. They started a petition amongst their family and amongst their friends to stop the Coast Guard from the demolition of the lighthouses in the Huntington Harbor. The Lloyd Harbor Lighthouse was constructed in 1861, and ships would run in the dark. Prior to this construction, ships would run into the Huntington Harbor in the dark for protection from the winds and the waves over the Long Island Sound. And this was important because the ships would run not just into shallow ground, ships would run into some of the hills and the specific landscape of the Huntington Harbor. In 1847, the government bought 5 acres of sand to help commence construction of the lighthouse. And in 1907, Congress sent the Huntington Harbor $40,000 to start the construction of a new lighthouse further east in the Huntington Harbor. Now, why would some say we still need lighthouses today? Or what is the history of the lighthouses? There was no specific word for lighthouse in ancient language. The term used was fire tower. Back then, they would construct these towers and they would keep fires lit on top of them, providing light for those who were out at sea. However, over a certain amount of time, these fires begin to be replaced by light bulbs and lenses. Then the Fresnel lens came, which was a lot more efficient in shining light further out into sea, cutting across fog, cutting across other dense weather patterns, serving as a beacon of safety for the ships. These lighthouses would warn ships of shallow ground. They may warn ships of coral in the area, or they might even warn ships of where it was safe to come in and out of harbors. The value of a lighthouse depends on its light and its positioning. That is how a lighthouse is determined by its value. And vessels today, ships today, they have GPS systems, they have radar beacons, they have other forms of navigational aids, but yet lighthouses are still important today. There are 48,000 federal buoys that are in over 25,000 miles of water. Yet the lighthouses still have a purpose. Many of these lighthouses are still in commission. Many lighthouses now have satellites that are now able to serve as communication for vessels, providing communication for them. They also provide weather updates out at sea for these vessels, And some lighthouses are still used in smaller harbors and smaller channels, safely guiding ships in and out. They are a sign of hope for sailors. And in Huntington, the harbor is landlocked. It is nestled between many hills. So the lighthouses here serve a purpose, as not only does the Huntington Harbor provide shelter from the winds and the waves, but the lighthouses also help guide these ships safely in and out of the landlocked harbor. These Huntington Harbor offers some of the most scenic views of the waterfront on all of Long Island. And prior to these lighthouses, there were problems all in the waterfront. Dredging and construction was needed immediately. And today, many ships that are private, many yachts, local fisheries, they still use the lighthouse as a sign of navigation, as a sign of how to get in and out of open water, and it still provides safety today from the winds and the waves off of the Long Island Sound. Now, there are ways that we can all donate, we can help spread the word as to what the Preservation Society does. They accept forms of donations because the Coast Guard maintains the light and they maintain the weather signals and the satellites, yet volunteers still maintain the actual grounds. When these lighthouses were constructed, there was no boat docking. Docks were constructed. The docks have to be maintained. The inside and outside of the lighthouses have to be maintained from the weather. Also, too, contributions help support the tours and the educational items that are provided over the course of the year for the lighthouse. Also, two volunteers help sponsor one of the largest music festivals out on the water in the Huntington Harbor. You can find more ways to donate and give at their website, showing the significant history of the Huntington Harbor waterfront.